Out of East Palestine, Ohio this evening is that a clinic will open tomorrow at noon for people with concerns related to the train derailment that happened 2.5 weeks ago. Hazardous material spewed into the air during a controlled burn to try to prevent a massive explosion. People have complained of health and environmental issues, even as the governor and others say tests show the air and the water are safe. Well, tonight we want to dig deeper into safety issues surrounding the nation's rail system, which of course goes right through Buffalo and so many of our communities, and in the context of this growing disaster. Joining us live is Jim Lewis. He is the National Vice President of the Brotherhood of Locomotive Engineers and Trainmen. That union is 57,000 strong. He was actually part of a team that investigated ways to prevent disasters like the 2013 derailment in Quebec that killed 47 people. We appreciate you coming in, sir. And one of the things that the union has advocated is minimum two-person crew on these trains. Walk us through why that is important in the context of Ohio, where I believe they did have a two-person crew, right?
Yes, they did. Two-person crew, as we look at it, is we are like the first responders for the first responders when a situation like this comes up. When you have an incident like this, when you have an engineer and conductor on there, they have all the information that the fire and the police need to be able to find out what's on that train, what needs to be done, and if an area like what happened needs to be evacuated.
Many of our viewers don't know the ins and outs of the railroad industry. They're not familiar with terms like conductor, engineer, and all of that. But those roles go beyond just operating the train. And then you have, the folks who are in charge of safety and doing these inspections. And you were telling us that the amount of time that is spent on those inspections from back in the day is very different than what it is now. It's pretty troubling when you think of how quickly it's done.
Yes, since the institution of this PSR, precision scheduling railroading, that most of the railroads have taken over, they have tried to basically expedite all the moves. So when the trains, at one time when the conductor or when the car department people would be inspecting the trains, they'd have 1 minute to 2 minutes to inspect each car. They have cut that in half to now between 30 and 45 seconds for them to inspect both sides of a boxcar.
I know that you're going to leave it to the NTSB to figure out the exact cause of the derailment in Ohio, but I mentioned before you were part of this team with the union that looked at the Quebec disaster from almost a decade ago. Again, 47 people killed. It was just awful. And I know the braking system was front and center there. We're talking about that a lot now with what happened in Ohio. Do you expect that the union has any role to play, if not in the actual investigation, at least in the what comes out of it portion?
The federal government, they have what we call RSAC committees, or basically it's a rail safety advisory committee that has the federal government, the railroads, and the unions together, that we try to sit down and put across the table our ideas to try to make it safer for everybody, for the townships that we go through every day.
It's interesting when you look at the numbers, and this is obviously an awful derailment, and you think of this could be a years-long impact for people who live there. But I was reading there's something like 1,000 derailments on average a year. Luckily, this one is going to have a spotlight on it, and you hope that some, safety improvements come out of it. Are you hopeful that that's what we'll see here, that the NTSB will figure out exactly what happened, we'll nail it down, and try to make the system safer?
Well, I hope so, because I was, as I said, involved in this 10 years ago with Lock Mechanic and what's gone on here, and it seems like now it's come up to new light again when something like this has happened. We hope this happens, but the NTSB, they give their recommendations, but it takes the FRA and sometimes Congress to basically make the rules or make the laws to enforce these changes.
When you were talking about the two-person minimum requirement to operate these large trains, I said Norfolk Southern was opposed to that. This is the very lengthy document that it submitted to the government, in which it said they had no scientific basis that a two-person crew is safer than a one-person crew. Would you just say common sense suggests that it's safer? And what do you make of sort of the opposition that there is toward making some of these changes in your industry?
As they brought out in the last report, it's like a redundancy of safety to have two people on a locomotive to be able to watch what goes on there. They're long travels. Most of our jobs here, let's say out of Buffalo towards Albany, 300 miles being called at all hours of the night. You'd like to have two sets of eyes on there to make sure everything you're doing safely, and to make sure these townships and these cities that you would go through, that we do it in a safe manner.
Finally, we've heard from a lot of people who maybe live along the rail line here in Buffalo. They see what's happening in Ohio. You always worry, like, could something like that happen here? Is that a fear that you have, that we could see something like that here?
The railroads try to do the safest as they can, but what we're watching with this precision scheduling railroading, they're trying to do more with less, and it gets to the point where all of a sudden something breaks.
Jim Lewis is the National Vice President for the Brotherhood of Locomotive Engineers and Trainmen. Again, 57,000 strong, and the Vice President of the union from right here in Buffalo. So we appreciate you coming in, and we'll probably be talking to you more as we learn. We're going to get a preliminary report out of Ohio, see what we find out there. We'd love to get your perspective.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.